Akdama to Masechta Trumas. The Torah commands that several portions be separated from produce that grew in Eretz Yisrael. Number 1, Truma Gedaila. The owner of the produce must first separate this portion, which is usually called just Truma, and given to a Kayan. The amount he has to separate is defined below. Number 2, he has to give Meiser Rishon. The owner then separates 1/10 of what remains and gives it to a Levi. Trumas Meiser. After receiving Meiser Rishon, the Levi separates 1/10 of it and gives that to a Kayan. There's machlekes tanoim whether only the Levi can separate Trumas Meiser, or whether the owner himself can separate it from Meiser Rishon before he gives the Meiser Rishon to the Levi. The fourth thing is Meiser Sheni, and the fifth thing is Meiser Ani. After separating Truma Gedaila and Meiser Rishon, the owner of the produce separates an additional 10th from what remains. The 10th is either Meiser Sheni or Meiser Ani, depending on the year in which the produce grows, as follows. In the first, second, fourth, and fifth years of the 7-year Shemitah cycle, this 10th is Meiser Sheni, which must be brought to Yerushalayim and eaten there. In the 3rd and 6th years of the Shemitah cycle, the 10th is Meiser Ani, which must be given to the poor. Every 7th year of Shemitah or Shvias, when most agricultural activities, such as planting and plowing, are forbidden, someone who has produce growing in his property during Shemitah must leave it free for anyone to take. Meiser Sheni must be brought to Yerushalayim and eaten there. If the owner finds it difficult to take his Meiser Sheni to Yerushalayim, he can redeem it by transferring its Kedusha onto coins. He then brings the coins to Yerushalayim and buys food with them there. The Kedusha of the coins is thus transferred to the food, which becomes the subject of Hilchas Meiser Sheni. Produce that grows in the 7th year, which is Shemitah, is exempt, is potter from all Trumas and Meises, because the Torah commands that such produce be hefker. As long as any of the required Trumas and Meises has not yet been separated, the produce is called tevel. The word tevel is a short for tav loy. It's not good, which is unfit for eating. Eating tevel is asur midaraisa. The isur against eating tevel does not go into force until the produce has been fully processed and has been brought into the house. The Chachamim, however, forbade eating tevel in a formal way, in a manner of, meaning if Maisa wasn't taken off, in the manner of a meal, as opposed to a snack, as soon as the produce becomes edible. This will be discussed in the Hakdama to Masechta Meisos, Mitzvah. Once the Trumas and Meisos have been separated, the remainder is called Chulin. Masechta Trumas deals primarily with halachas of Truma Gedaila. Many of these halachas apply to Trumas Meiser, and some apply to Meisers as well. There are halachas that apply to Trumas and Meisers that are only mentioned in Masechtas Meisers. Strictly speaking, the word Meisers, literally tenths, refers only to the portions known as Meiser Rishon, Meiser Sheni, and Meiser Ani. However, it is often used in a broader sense to include Truma Gedaila and Trumas Meiser as well. Now, which produce do you take Trumas and Meisers from? The Torah mentions only grain, wine, and oil when it speaks of Truma. Reishis degoncha, tirescha, v'yitzarecha, titanloi. The first of your grain, wine, and oil you should give to the kohen. Many authorities hold that only these 3 types of produce are mechuyev midaraisa in Hilchos Trumas and Meisers. According to the Rambam, however, the chiyuv deraisa applies to all types of produce with the exception of vegetables. The machlekes relates only to the chiyuv deraisa. Everyone agrees that midrabanan Trumas and Meisers must be separated from all edible produce. How much do you have to take of Truma Gedaila? The proportion of produce that has to be separated for each of the Meisers, Meiser Rishon, Meiser Sheni, Meiser Ani, and for Trumas Meiser, is 1/10. However, the Torah does not state a specific measure for Truma. Midaraisa, any amount, even a single kernel of grain, is enough Truma for a large pile of produce. The Chachamim, however, established amounts to be separated as Truma. Someone who wants to give generously should separate 1/40th of his produce. An average person separates 1/50th, and a miserly person may separate 1/60th. The Chachamim applied these rules only to produce that has a chiyuv deraisa of truma. In the case of produce whose truma obligation is only midrabanan, his 60th is enough even for generous people. Who's allowed to eat truma? The following halachas apply to both types of truma, Truma Gedaila and Trumas Meiser, although some of the halachas that relate to separating these 2 portions are different, and they are treated the same once they are separated. Truma may be eaten by a kohen. Truma may be eaten by a kohen and the members of his household, his wife, his sons, who are kohanim also. The wife of a kohen may eat truma even if her father was not a kohen. If she is later widowed or divorced from the kohen, she may continue to eat truma as long as there is a surviving child from the marriage. his sons were Kohanim themselves, his unmarried daughters. The daughter of a Kohen is forbidden to eat truma when she is married to a non-Kohen. Upon being widowed or divorced, she may eat truma again, but only if she does not have a surviving child from the marriage. And his avadim knanim could also eat truma. A non-Kohen who deliberately commits the avera of eating truma is punished with misa b'dei shomayim. If the truma he ate was already given to a Kohen, he must also repay the Kohen for the loss of his truma. If a non-Kohen eats truma by mistake, he didn't know that it was truma, or he didn't know that eating truma is asur, he must separate an amount of produce that's equal to the truma he ate plus a fourth of that amount. Although the extra payment is only a quarter of the principal, the Torah refers to it as a fifth because it is a fifth of the total payment. It's a principal plus the quarter. And give it all to a Kohen. The produce used as payment becomes truma and is forbidden to non-Kohanim. The Torah describes truma as kodesh. Because truma is holy, the Kohen who eats truma must be tahar. A Kohen who eats truma while he is tamei is mechuyev misa b'dei shomayim. If the truma itself is tamei, it may not be eaten even by a Kohen, whether he's tamei or tahar. Like other foods that are kadosh that become tamei, it must be burnt. Such truma must nevertheless be given to a Kohen who may benefit from it as he burns it, for example, by using it as fuel to cook food with. The Torah asks making truma tamei or destroying truma. A Kohen may not use truma for any purpose other than eating. Drinking truma or applying it to one's skin as a lotion are permitted because they're considered a form of eating, like we learned in Masechta. Any item of truma may be used only for the purpose to which it is most suited. Salads may only be eaten, liquids such as wine may only be drunk, and oil may be used as a lotion. Using truma for a less suitable purpose, drinking pure oil or applying wine to one's skin as an ointment, is considered destroying it, which is asur. These restrictions apply only to uses of truma that damage or destroy it, such as burning it as fuel for a fire. It is permitted to use truma in a manner that leaves it unharmed, such as sitting on it or smelling it. In fact, even a non-Kohen who is forbidden to eat truma may benefit from it in certain ways that do not harm it. Truma that is used mainly as animal fodder may be fed to animals as well. A Kohen who eats truma fulfills a mitzvah and makes a bracha, asher kiddushanu, when he eats it. If truma becomes mixed with chulin, ordinary food, the entire mixture is asur to non-Kohanim, unless it contains enough chulin to be mevatel the truma. A forbidden mixture of truma and chulin is called meduma. The term meduma comes from the word dama, which is the Torah's word for truma. Since it may not be eaten by non-Kohen, the entire mixture is sold to a Kohen. However, the value of the truma and the mixture, which belongs to the Kohanim, is deducted from the amount the Kohen is charged. The laws of bittul are stricter for truma than most other isurim. Generally, if prohibited dry food becomes mixed with permitted dry food of the same type, for example, a piece of non-kosher meat becomes mixed with pieces of kosher meat, we cannot tell them apart. A simple majority of permitted food nullifies the minority, meaning it's batel b'roif, and all the pieces are going to be mutter. Liquid mixtures are permitted if the permitted item is 60 times larger than the forbidden item. However, the Chachamim decreed that in a mixture of truma and chulin, whether dry or liquid, the truma is not batel unless there are at least 100 parts of chulin for each part of truma, 100 times more. Even if the mixture is permitted to non-Kohanim because it contains 100 times more chulin than truma, a portion equivalent to the amount of truma must be separated from it. This portion is given to a Kohen as compensation for the truma that was nullified. The replacement portion here is treated as truma and is asur to non-Kohanim. What areas are mechuyev in truma? Like most of the halachas that have to do with the land of Eretz Yisrael and its produce, its mitzvahs hatluyos ba'aretz, the chiv deraisa to separate trumas and ma'asos apply only in Eretz Yisrael. However, the Nevi'im require that they be separated from the produce of Bavel as well because it's closeness to Eretz Yisrael and because Jews regularly traveled between the two countries. Later, the Chachamim imposed a similar halacha regarding the produce in the countries surrounding Eretz Yisrael as Ammon, Moav, and Mitzrayim, as the Mishnah mentions in Yadayim. In addition, the area known as Surya, which is northeast of Eretz Yisrael, is rabbinically subject to many of the laws that apply to Eretz Yisrael, including the chiyuv to separate trumas and ma'asos. What about today? Bisman hazeh, how does truma work? Trumas and ma'asos must be separated from produce grown in Eretz Yisrael, even today. The machlekes rishonim whether this obligation is mid Torah or mid Rabbanon. Some rishonim hold that when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed and the Yidden of Eretz Yisrael went to Galus, the land lost its kedusha that made it subject to trumas and ma'asos. The chiv deraisa then came to an end and is only under rabbinic law that trumas and ma'asos must be separated. The Rambam, however, holds that Eretz Yisrael remained kadosh even after the Churban Beis Hamikdash. Nevertheless, he agrees that the chiv of trumas and ma'asos nowadays is only mid Rabbanon because the chiv deraisa applies only when most of the Yidden live in Eretz Yisrael and that has not been the case since the time of the first Beis HaMikdash. The Ravid argues on both of these approaches. In his view, the Chiv Deraisa is still applying today. The halacha follows those who ruled that it's midrabanan, as mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah and Yerideo, Siman, Shin, Lamed, Aleph. Because Kehanim nowadays are assumed to be Tameh and cannot prove that they are indeed Kehanim, Truma is no longer given to Kehanim. Instead, one must bury it or dispose of it in some other manner that's not disrespectful. For Truma Gedola, it suffices to separate just a small amount, since that is enough according to the Torah, as mentioned previously. But the Truma's Meiser is a tenth of a tenth is required. The complete procedure is Reb Chaim Kanievsky and Derech Hamun at the end of Paragimel discusses how to do it. With the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash and identification and purification of the Kehanim that will take place then, Truma will once again be given to Kehanim. It's interesting that one of the rayas that the Gemara in Chelik and Sanhedrin brings for Tchias HaMesim is from Truma. So may we be zeicha to Kehanim Avedosam, Levim, Shir, Zimram, Yisrael, and Ve'am, Misham Nalav and Irav and Shtachav Lefanecha, and maybe here only Besudas Taivas.